Welcome and thank you for joining us in the session, Patient Academy for the Region. Can Eupati be replicated in Asia? Moderated by Dr. Ratna Devi, Chair at the International Alliance of Patients Organizations.
Good afternoon, everyone from India, and good morning and good evening to people from the rest of the world. We have a very exciting session, Patient Academy, and there have been several initiatives not only across the world, but also in the Asia-Pacific region as well. I'll just start with a small anecdote. Way back in 2012, when I was invited to attend the Global Patient Congress in UK, London, when I got down at the Heathrow airport, there was a shuttle that would gather all the patients together and take us to the place where we were staying. And I happened to meet people from the International Federation of Psoriasis Alliances, and they were super excited because they were going to introduce a resolution in the World Health Assembly for psoriasis organizations. And I was completely blown away because I didn't know patient groups could do something like that. And I kept wondering, coming from a country like India, where patient groups were still not really recognized or not empowered enough, how are these people doing this? And over the years, I mean, it eventually got admitted into the WHO in 2014 as a full resolution that was accepted by all the member states. And it was a huge achievement because it was driven by patient organizations in partnership with IAPO. And then when I asked people, how did this happen? And I started talking to people, I learned that some of these patients were far better than the scientists and the researchers themselves because they had educated themselves so well. And that is how I came to know about an institution called Eupati, which was, actually training and teaching these people to understand the whole process of discovery and then coming back to the bedside and how do patients respond and what are their reactions, how is that data collected, and then how is the whole cycle set up so that patients are an integral part of the whole process. I then went on to heard about other institutions like PCORI, which is the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, based out of the US, doing similar kind of work. But then there was nothing in the Asia Pacific, Africa, or Latin America region. About 2 years back, something similar started in Latin America as well, but Africa and the Southeast Asia and APAC region still lacks an institutional mechanism to do this. So how do we do it? How do we take it forward? How do we make patients from this region as empowered as the patients were from the International Federation of Psoriasis organizations is something that we will be discussing today. Can we really bring Eupati or a Eupati-like structure to the Asia-Pacific region? And to take us through this very interesting discussion, we have three very good speakers. Some of them have been part of this whole Eupati journey, as well as worked with the psoriasis alliances, and they are best positioned to explain to us how this can be done. And I will give a very brief introduction and then hand over to the panelists to lead us through this whole discussion. So today we have with us Lasse Jacobsen, who is the Senior Lead Patient Research and Alliances, Leo Pharma. And he brings 10 years of experience from working in pharma, the last 4 years in patient engagement teams across 2 different pharma companies. And he has helped establish functions that ensure that the patient voice is not only heard, but also implemented throughout the value chain from early research to the product phase. And Lasse has been part of numerous initiatives and coalitions across academia, patient organizations, and industry working together to help improve the lives of people living with chronic diseases. Welcome. We have Tamás, who I have worked very closely with, and he is a course coordinator at Eupati. He currently works as the courses and content coordinator of the European Patient Academy on Therapeutic Innovation, the acronym being Eupati, which is, everybody knows. He is an HIV positive person since 2003. He served as a member of the board of directors of the European AIDS Treatment Group for almost 4 years and served as the co-chair of the European Commissioner's Civil Society Forum on HIV/AIDS from 2013 to 2015. And has been involved in many EU and global projects. He's been a member of the BMJ patient panel since 2017. We also have Nidhi, who is now helping us to work with Duke and US in Singapore to do something similar to Eupati. She is the president, Crohn's and Colitis Society of Singapore. She's the founder and president of this initiative. She's a consultant for the Foundation of Rotary Clubs Limited. She has an MSc in Finance and from the University of Leicester, United Kingdom, and an MSc in Operations Research, University of Delhi. And she just told us some very good news, which she will probably share with us as we speak about a Eupati-like institution in this region. So without much ado, over to you, Lasse, to present to us how you have empowered patients to reach a position where they're able to submit a resolution at the WHO.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ratna. And please let me know if my voice is not coming through clear. As you can see, as many, I am home in my own basement. And of course, that's a new way of working, right? But I'll get right to it. I'll just share my screen here. And then we should be able to see my presentation in just a few seconds. So can you see my first page here?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really great. Thank you. So again, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Lasse Jacobsen. I sit as the Senior Lead of Patient Research and Alliances at Leo Pharma. I've been working in this field of patient involvement in industry from industry perspective the last 4 or 5 years, but I've been in pharma for 10 years now. And today, of course, I'm going to give my perspective, you could say, starting overall by looking at how do we at Leo Pharma work with patient panels, work with great foundation and initiatives like Eupati around patient education, before handing over to first of all, Tamás, who will take you through much more details on Eupati. But to start out with, as I said, first I'm going to talk a bit about the concept that we live by in Leo Pharma, which is nothing about you without you. I'll come into the details in a minute. Then I'll talk to more specifically on how we actually build up our patient panels. Then a little bit around, so more concretely, how is it that we co-create in medicines R&D? Then just a few words from my perspective, from the industry perspective on Eupati, and then on to the conclusions. So first of all, we are super proud of this article that was actually posted on the IAPO website last year. And what it talks about is really the concept of us moving into, for example, a new indication, a new focus, in this case, a rare disease with a skin manifestation. And how we did that was actually first and foremost learning about the unmet medical need and the disease burden from a patient perspective. And that, alongside all other, you could say, entities, led to our decision of moving in and actually investing our research and efforts into a certain disease within rare diseases. Now, this is really how we build the function of what we call patient engagement at Leo Pharma, starting always with the concept of saying, well, we not only have to listen to the patient's voice, we also have to implement the learnings we get from the very get-go, and I'll get into the details in a minute. But how we actually do that in a systemized way is actually by forming different panels within the disease areas that Leo Pharma is focusing on. As many of you know, it is of course within skin diseases, primarily eczema and psoriasis, but also within rare diseases with skin manifestations. And this is where we build panels. We build panels we call EPIC panels. EPIC stands for External Partners and Innovation Consultants, meaning people who actually live with the disease or caregivers to someone living with the disease. And we have different tier levels, if you will. If we start from left to right, we start with our tier level 3 panel. So that panel is people who are not necessarily members of any formalized community structures, what we would call Mr. and Mrs. Smith, patients living with the disease, representing themselves and their own experience, which is absolutely vital for us very, very often to get those learnings to actually produce something that makes the most sense, or there is as much precise solution as possible. Then we move to the tier 2s. That are actually people who are members of organization. It could be bloggers, it could be people who are members of social media groups and so forth, still representing their own experience, but being quite vocal about it, and also being members of communities. And then we jump to the tier 1 EPIC panels, which are basically people who are leading formalized community structures. They can be global patient leaders, they can be regional and national patient leaders. And what's special here is, of course, that they speak on behalf of the many, representing what we call the we knowledge here, as you can see in the box to the far right. So this is how we actually has, in a systemized way, how we have built panels throughout the diseases we focus on, but not only throughout the diseases, but also in each and every, you could say, tier level, where every individual tier levels is absolutely vital for us to have in order for us to make the most precise and the best solutions in the end for people living with chronic skin diseases. So this is a more concrete example of the co-creation element in medicine's R&D, and this is of course super relevant because this comes so closely in line with how we educate in Eupati in medicine's R&D. So if we start again to the far left, you'll see the frontline innovation, our business development phase. Here I've given some examples of how we work with patients. This is again, as I mentioned to begin with in our article, this is could be around identifying and assessing new opportunities. We start by looking and asking the patient community before we actually engage. We also start by having the group validate the business case in front of us, meaning of course often that is an expert knowledge you cannot get anywhere else, really and often around the specific and very precise description of the disease burden and the unmet medical need existing. Then we jump into the different phases of our clinical operations, phase 1, 2, and 3, and I've just collectively put down a few examples. Here we get absolutely vital information around how our trial outline is phrased, how our design is looking. Of course, we get help from our patient groups around recruitment for our different trials, but also educating and training our investigators, all the sites we collaborate with, and bring in actually the patient's voice, the patient insights, and do a lot of investigator meetings with patient representatives as well. And then further on in the value chain, in the market approval, the marketing section as well, we also do a lot of patient information leaflet in connection with our patient groups, of course, but also in terms of the regulatory process. Just being very aware of time here, I've just included one slide on Eupati from my perspective, and I'm sorry, this is quite a busy slide, but this is actually patient education, patient engagement through patient education. Because Eupati is a dedicated training provider, as you know, for patient and patient representatives. And of course, this can be replicated in all parts of the world, despite different cultures, entities, political institutions, and this is really an encouragement. There are a lot of great initiatives going on, but I think Eupati can definitely serve as a great inspiration source. If you look to the far left and the down left corner, you can see the different modules of the patient education element. Tamás will talk more in details about Eupati, of course. I've included some of the information on the toolbox. There's a great toolbox on Eupati available on medicine's R&D and patient engagement in general. And of course, we also have a lot of training portfolios available throughout medicine's R&D, patient engagement, in-house training, and national trainings as well, establishing our national platforms. So this from industry side is absolutely amazing because it provides an opportunity for some of the groups that could benefit a lot from going through this education program. And what it creates a very balanced way, a balanced relationship between, for example, industry, HTA bodies, regulators, and so forth, and the patient community, which is very, very important to understand here, that this is part of, you could say, the road to success. Now, just a few conclusions from my perspective, from Leo Pharma's perspective. It's around involving patients as early as possible in the process of medicine's development. In that way, we all know then you can actually make the changes that are needed in order for you to provide the best solutions for people living with chronic diseases. Do not wait and involve patient at some late stage where it's so-called a tick mark exercise, and you can't really make any changes. You need to do it as early as possible. And also the learnings from the disease experts, they can lead to, and this is of course needless to say, but quite extraordinary improved clinical trial designs on all the key parameters that we are all looking into: recruitment, retention, less amendments, all leading to more precise and faster, you could say, solutions for people. And the last bullet I just want to bring forward here is around the topic, again, the topic today, Eupati or similar patient education in Asia. There are a lot of fantastic initiatives, but one piece of advice from my humble experience is that all entities really need to come together. From the political institution, APAC, the academic institutions and patient organizations is of course the most important thing. We need to come together, because together our voice is a lot stronger than if we represent individually our own, you could say, entity and background. And I have an encouragement actually also to please reach out to our new Eupati director. She used to be the coordinator of Eupati. She's called Maria. She is quite fantastic, and I've included her email here, because definitely she will help you be, you could say, channelized if you want to do or take initiative in, you could say, doing something similar to Eupati around patient education. And of course, you're also very welcome to visit our website at leopharma.com, but you can also at the bottom here contact me if you want to know more. If you have questions or anything, please contact me, and my email is right here. And I have also shared my slides with IAPO, so there you are very welcome to share them with the full group. And now I'll actually pass on to Tamás, who will talk a lot more about Eupati. So I'll just stop sharing here. And Ratna, I don't know if we have time for questions now, or we'll take them after the session.
We will take them after the session. So I'll pass on to Tamás. And thank you so much. The messages, we have to all work together, you know, patient groups, academia, and the political institutions. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you from my side as well, and I hope you can see my slides. And warm welcome to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. It is indeed very, very exciting, and I'm actually looking forward to moving on with this project, with this initiative, because I really think it's quite important. In my short presentation, I will talk about a little bit about what Eupati does and how it is structured. And then, of course, I'm also happy to take your questions afterwards so that we can discuss in more detail how it could be then replicated in your region. I think it's absolutely feasible that let me start by saying that. Thank you. As you know, well, we realize that patients do have a key role. They play a key role in all aspects of health-related research. So that patients, especially in Europe, but also in the US, have been working with competent authorities for quite some time now. In the European working parties and all of its different decision-making bodies. And the same applies, even though through a different structure, to other health authorities or competent authorities as well. Patients have also been working with policymakers. Needless to say, patients are the public. They are the ultimate users of the medicines and treatments that are out there. To an increasing extent, patients are also involved in research ethics committees, in health technology assessment agencies, certainly in clinical trials, clinical research, not just as research participants or subjects, but also they drive clinical research. They are also co-researchers. Oftentimes they contribute through ideas, through reviews. So they are actively included in the whole or throughout the whole spectrum. So that there are certain areas such as the trial protocol design, the design and review of informed consent forms, ethical reviews, marketing authorization or input into that, the assessment of value from a patient perspective, and of course also have policy where patients can and
Did we lose Tamás?
Should make a meaningful input. However, the education without a right level of knowledge that's required. Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Am I still okay? Good. Yes. I'm sorry. So why do patients do this in the first place? Well, patients have different roles in the patient organizations and in their work as patient advocates. They do support other patients and their families and caregivers with making the right choices in case of a challenging disease or even a challenging treatment. They also help clinicians possible care is provided, and also that there is no outdated practice out there. Patients can influence regulators and they can influence payers as well, and tell policymakers that they do policy for the patients and not just about the patient. Yes. So it is again a very challenging field which requires knowledge. But we say that, okay, you may be ill, but if you acquire the right level of knowledge, then you become capable of almost anything. So this is actually what we have tried to map out and implement in a very targeted way within Eupati. Therefore, Eupati also developed a series of guidance documents which are written for patients, patient organizations, and also other stakeholders. And they describe in detail and in a very simple, very easy to follow way how patients can work in industry-led research and development. This is again something that we did together with Lasse and Lasse's team. Also how patients can work with health technology assessment bodies in regulatory processes and in ethics committees. It's important to know that all of
The sound is breaking up, Tamás, and we can't hear you.
Work co-developed industry, patient organizations have always been involved in this work. Am I here? I hope I'm here.
Yes,
you're back.
I'm sorry,
maybe turn off the camera, Tamás. Maybe it won't pull so much from the local internet. Sometimes it helps. Maybe you can try just.
I did that.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, this is my internet is not the best today. I apologize. No problem. But there are also other guidances out there which we have relied on within Eupati, such as the one developed by the European Organization for Rare Diseases, or the European Cancer Patient Coalition, the European AIDS Treatment Group, where I used to work, and a number of other organizations, including the European Federation of the Pharmaceutical Industry, which has played a key role in this type of work. So you see various stakeholders, everyone involved on an equal footing in developing these guidances, which were then published as peer-reviewed articles in Frontiers in Medicine to make sure that it's out there as proper evidence. So originally Eupati was launched in February 2012 as a consortium, as a public-private partnership with, at that time, 33 consortium members. It's around 30 consortium members today. Initially, it was funded by the Innovative Medicines Initiative. Today, it's an independent foundation, so we have moved along. And we find that this independent foundation structure is a very good one to keep such an operation running. Our key objective has always been to develop and disseminate credible, correct, and up-to-date public knowledge, which is unbiased and objective and based on science about medicines research and development. I hope I'm back. Yes, I think I'm back. So we found that over the last couple of years, Eupati has become a game changer and a real driver in patient engagement in research and development. And also, we have continued this educational work that was outlined by Lasse before, both primarily for patient communities, for patients and patient organizations, but also for other stakeholders. So we offer courses for people who work with the industry. We also offer courses for people in academia, for regulators, so we have tailored these courses, always revolving around the same content, which is patient involvement, patient engagement. We have tailored them to the needs and to the specifics of the given communities that approach us. If we speak about the patients, Eupati offers contents on these two levels. There's the educational toolbox and the internet library, which is there for everyone. It's open access. It's available in these languages that you see, with the ones in brackets coming up now. So they are being uploaded to the website as we speak. And these are our 6 key areas where we work: discovery of medicines, preclinical, clinical development, clinical trials, also regulatory affairs, of course, pharmacovigilance, health technology assessment, and new areas will come to this, such as medical devices, for example, which is being developed as we speak. But also we offer the Eupati patient expert training course, which is now available online. Everybody in the world can click on and enroll into the course from the 1st of January, or rather from the first week of January, as it looks now, it will be available almost for free for a nominal fee that you then have to pay for the course. It's going to be super cheap in order to make it accessible for patients. It's been a hugely successful initiative. We are especially proud of, by now it has already reached 4 million users of the toolbox, and as you see, it's being accessed, it's being clicked on from all around the world. The expert patient training course, or patient expert training course, has also been tremendously successful. We already have 154 graduates, and another 60 people are in training right now in the 4th course, and the online course is coming right now. Lasse has already mentioned the national platforms. It's relatively simple and easy to set up national platforms, so you're very welcome to do that. And if you go to the toolbox, you will find all these almost 4,000 content items, articles, PowerPoints, infographics, fact sheets, all sorts of materials that you can access, and you can build your own materials from this. It's all open access, and it's all under Creative Commons. And as always, we focus on making sure that the content production is completely unbiased. All stakeholders take part in this process. Everybody has an equal say. It's not controlled by one or the other party. It's patient-driven, but it's equally on an equal footing controlled by all 4 stakeholders: academia, patients, industry, and regulators. So that's what I wanted to tell you about Eupati, and I'm happy to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Tamás. I do have a few questions, but we will wait for those questions until we hear from Nidhi, because she has something exciting to share as well. So over to you, Nidhi. Tamás, if you can stop your share, then...
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now Nidhi can share.
Okay, thanks, Ratna. Let me try to get this in order. Yeah, as you have shared already, my name is Nidhi, and I'm the founder and president of the Crohn's and Colitis Society of Singapore. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the different participants in different parts of the world. I'm based in Singapore, and let's get started. Overall, what I understand is the World Health Organization actually has divided the world into 6 regions for the purposes of reporting, analysis, and administration. So the African region, the Americas, the Eastern Mediterranean, and European region are not our focus in this discussion, but more towards Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific region. And going by the topic, I really need to zoom in very quickly because we have a spectrum of challenges and opportunities in our region. Firstly, if you look at the population, we do have the world's most populous countries, China and India, everybody's familiar with that. We also have economically advanced countries as well as those that are struggling. Aging population, rapidly aging population, I should say, and there's an increase in chronic illnesses. We also have the world's highest density, like Macau, Singapore, and Hong Kong. It's really the highest in the world. So be it communicable diseases or chronic diseases, we are sitting at hotspots. When it comes to healthcare models, we don't have a unifying system or one model that goes across the region. You would see the beverage model in Hong Kong, the national health insurance model in South Korea, universal healthcare in India, China, Thailand, and Philippines. But overall, if you take a look across the region, out-of-pocket health expenditure remains very high, specifically if you look at Southeast Asia. When it comes to patient support groups, there are quite a few, but we don't have any unifying umbrella bodies in each country. And when it comes to advocacy, again, you see a spectrum. Some terms are even considered taboo in certain countries. You can't even say advocacy. But people are coming together and trying to raise their voice. So one of the key things I feel is a cultural issue in Asia, as opposed to Europe or US. Patients across Asia are more with that kind of mindset where we are the recipients of the service. Whereas in Europe or US, they are more like partners in healthcare. So there's a major difference, yeah? So when we're talking about the whole issue, we need to cover everything. So even when it comes to training of patients, we'll have to keep this in mind, that we have to shift a patient from just being a recipient sitting in a clinic, oh, doctor, please tell me what needs to be done, to a point where, okay, I'm empowered, I'm part of this process, and let's discuss what's needed. So that's why I have put in a point which says we are lagging far behind the Western counterparts. Yeah. Moreover, when we look at R&D in this region, there's very little Asia-focused research. Most research is done in the Western countries, and those results are used on Asian population. But at the end of this whole spectrum of issues that we are looking at, I also bring out the point that what is the role of an Asian patient? We need to think about that. So far, like I just mentioned, most R&D is done in the Western countries. Similarly, clinical trials, most of them are done in the Western countries. There's very little done in the Asian population. Some of the diseases, like let's say Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, because the numbers are small across these countries, and each country could be tiny. So it doesn't probably make financial sense to run a clinical trial or to even consider pooling a few centers together. So it usually is that trials are done in the Western countries and the results are passed on to us. But I would say that there is a huge need for a focus on Asian population. Firstly, there's an increasing incidence of chronic diseases in the last 10, 15 years. In fact, there's an exponential growth in certain illnesses. The severity of these diseases also, if you look at it, you compare the same illness, there's a different impact on Asians. Then when it comes to the age at diagnosis of the illness, I can specifically talk about Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. There is a definite drop in age. We are seeing younger children getting diagnosed with the illnesses, which is quite alarming because the rest of their life, they're going to live with this illness. Then, of course, comes environmental factors. We all know the water is different, soil is different, agricultural practices, they all impact the food we eat. And that food is impacting us, and the illness, the way it progresses would be impacted, right? So we need to look into all these factors. Moreover, when it comes to the role of genetics, many of the illnesses, we are told that our genes play a part. Although there's no conclusive evidence, but then at least it's on the hypothesis that it could be genes playing a role. Now, if genes are playing a role, patients are definitely different. You look at a sample study anytime. In Singapore, you can find 4 races at any table, any meeting. You have Chinese, Malay, Indian, Eurasian, you'd find all of them. So maybe sample studies could be done maybe in Singapore or any other metropolitan city, and larger population studies can be done in the other parts of Asia. I'm totally impressed by Eupati. I cannot stop being amazed that in 8 years or 9 years, they've done so much amazing work. So I need to touch on their amazing work very quickly. They brought together multi-stakeholder public-private partnership, which was, I mean, Tamás has already covered it, but I would like to repeat that they've done fantastic work. The training that they're providing, it increases the capacity and the capability of patients and the patient representatives. It is so important because patients come from various backgrounds. It could be different educational background, economic situation, their understanding of the illness, the age of the patient. All these factors will make them speak a language which might be quite different and might not be meaningful for the researchers or for the decision makers. So a training platform is vital. It goes without saying. And I'm thoroughly impressed that there's a multilingual toolbox that they have and people can have access to it. It'll be fantastic if we can do this in Asia. And going further, again, tapping on what Eupati is doing, I think a patient will need to understand what is the big picture? What role are we playing? Because a patient, if you just pick any patient from any patient organization, they would only know about their illness, their perspective of the journey, and how certain changes can be made in that segment. But they need to understand the overall picture. So for that, what role does our voice play when it comes to medicines research and development, when it comes to national policies, or for the payers to make decisions? So that whole, what should I say, the framework, we need to understand. And that can be done through a training arm if it is set up in Asia. Now, when it comes to the same issue that we are talking about, that can we replicate what Eupati has done? I would think it can be done as long as we can bring in the same kind of resources, bringing everyone together. The public-private partnership is vital. Providing certain level of training even to the other stakeholders, I think is important. Because again, it comes back to Asian mindset. Are all countries on the same platform? Are the decision makers who are seated at HTA, are they open to a patient voice being at the table? Are the medicine developers open to having all stakeholders part of the process? Insurance companies, be it the Ministry of Health, be it healthcare regulatory authorities, all stakeholders need to understand the importance of a patient voice. Many of them might already be aware of it, but then bringing the patient into that discussion and actually implementing it is a different ballgame. And training is needed for all of them. So again, I tap on Eupati, where the roles and objectives of all these stakeholders need to be clearly stated. And everyone needs to understand that to develop medicines that better address patients' unmet needs, we need to go through this process. People need to understand what's the code of conduct, where there can be conflict of interest. the importance of bringing in all the vulnerable populations also. Do not leave anyone behind. Then when it comes to like confidentiality, agreement, and by saying something or doing something, a patient might be breaching trust. Those issues need to be clarified and set properly, and then we are able to move forward. I would strongly raise the flag of Singapore. We are a tiny little country, a little red dot, we call it, but Singapore has a very strong reputation for high governance standards. We have some of the regional headquarters, the Secretariat of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, World Trade Organization, United Nations, a whole lot of things are headquartered in Singapore for the region. And a lot of international conferences and events are held here. More importantly, Singapore was ranked 6th in the world by the World Health Organization in health services and healthcare systems. So I would advocate for, if I can, that the academy be set up in Singapore. We do have some leading hospitals and the academic medical center like the Singhealth Duke and US Medical Center. And we also have the Institute for Patient Safety and Quality. We can all work together to make it happen. Of course, the model of Eupati would be like the guiding light for us. We can't do it all on our own. And if we can partner with them and get some guidance, I think it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Nidhi. I see that there were a few questions asked, but they have been replied online. I have a quick question for Lasse. When you set up an institution like Eupati, you would also need an academic institution. So since Europe is so diverse, how did you go about choosing the academic institution that you would like to partner with?
I think I'll let Tamás answer that first, because he was there before me and my time. Okay. And also, as I represent industry, I would rather have it be Tamás representing the patient community answer that first.
Okay.
If you won't mind, Tamás.
Tamás, over to you.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. So it was kind of, initially it was random. It was people who were involved in the consortium already, and some of them were working in academia, professors teaching at universities, such as Ingrid Klingman or Professor Wolfsee, who were enthusiastic in the beginning, and they just thought that this would be a good idea, and so they involved their co-workers and fellow researchers. And then it just grew like that. Suddenly it became well known and popular. And so now we have the other situation when researchers, universities approach us and ask us for cooperation. And then we consistently try to make sure that, yes, we say yes, but we only say yes under the condition that we really make patient involvement, patient engagement happen. So that should be the key objective that we always focus on. That's like the red thread throughout our work. So of course, we're happy to collaborate in all sorts of various research consortia and teaching and educational initiatives, but the key objective should always be patient engagement. And because people realize by now that this is our specialty, this is something that we've done rather impactfully over the last years. So they approach us now rather than the other way around. Honestly, in the beginning, it was just by chance. I mean, we had these people who were enthusiastic, and they, like Nidhi is, or like you are, Ratna, and they drove this forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Lasse, I have one question. We have just 1 minute, so I will ask you. There is a sizable domestic pharma in this region, in the APAC region, and I guess there must be something similar in the European region as well. So is domestic pharma also excited about these kind of initiatives? And if they are not, how can we excite them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you can do is we have the national platforms in Eupati, and that actually in Denmark, I helped start the Danish national platform, and that was basically to showcase value for a variety of participants here. I mean, being it academia, as Tamás was mentioning, the patient organization, but also from industry side. So really, you could say doing the strong value proposition, and as Tamás is saying, we have some really, you could say, enthusiastic people that really can see the value as yourselves on this call and really driving things. And once you have representation from the different entities, you invite people together, and all of a sudden you have a group representing different parts of society, right? And that's a real strong. And as to your point, Ratna, instead of focusing so much on it being a big IMI international project, for the domestic ones, we focused on, so what can we do locally in the spirit of Central Eupati, the material that has been developed, the initiatives that are already there, as Tamás went through just before. And that alone led to an inspiration, you could say, leading to a national chapter. And we can start in the same way, having a centralized office, maybe in Singapore, and then moving out in the different countries.
New Delhi.
Yes.
But that would be my comment. And I think Tamás made a good point before around the beginning, but also just an important thing, the balance between having different capabilities and experience, me being it patient organizations, academia and industry first and foremost, of course, that coming together creates a quite strong voice.
Thank you so much. We are just over time now. And I love the discussion, and we will take it forward after this session is over as well. So thank you, Tamás. Thank you, Lasse, and thank you, Nidhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so
Ratna.
much.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.